a show about universal topics from a Latina perspective.
Latina Voices, Smart Talk.
Today on Latina Voices Smart Talk, we celebrate giving, caring, and growing for humanity. We welcome two dynamos, Amy Pierce and Jane Bakaroff, and their infectious passion as they navigate and educate us on heart, housing, entrepreneurship, and readiness training, KNOWAutism, and Houston 20. All three formidable entities addressing outcome determinative matters that know no racial, ethnic, or social boundaries, affecting all of us. I am Sofia Adrogué, 10-year Texas super lawyer and host and producer of today's show, a proud Houston First Board member, honored to be here in tape at our beloved city's Hilton of the Americas, Houston. It is the prophetic city. It is the city of the future, what the United States will look like 40 years hence as we engage, educate, and empower with some Latina Voices Smart Talk. As we engage in Smart Talk, continuing our journey in 2021 post the global pandemic, there's a need for resilience, reimagination, re-engagement, and perhaps a little rebirth in this new normal. We are cognizant of our nation's doctor, the U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, and advocating, this is important, for the healing power of human connection in a sometimes lonely world. What is that? That is his title of his book. This is what's difficult. Not surprisingly, his research solidifies that we know it can be lonely. What's difficult is he talked about it being a lonely world before the pandemic. But what does he say? Lessons learned regardless and whenever. If we want to be more fulfilled and healthier, the human connection is the center of all. He was concerned about loneliness before the pandemic. And now in the age of COVID and its aftermath, this is crucial. We need to avoid a social recession. The good news for all of us, we have the tools right here. In Houston, there's over 30,000 nonprofit entities, whether Houston or Texas combined. And what does he say? When we want to bounce back from adversity, we have to have a sense of purpose, of giving support to others, having a significant impact of what we do. During a crisis, this is not surprising, but great to hear. The people who cope best are those who help others. There's a lot of evidence that one of the best anti-anxiety medications available is generosity. Let me repeat that. We all need a little bit of generosity. That one of the best anti-anxiety medications may be generosity. When we return to paradigms, Houstonians that give it with all, award-winning generosity, relentlessly. Amy and Jane, Latina Voices, Smart Talk. Welcome back to Latina Voices Smart Show. Armed with a BS in journalism and a public relations with honors, community leader and activist mother Amy Pierce has served as chair of the Theater Under the Stars board, serves as the chair of the board of KNOWAutism, which promotes autism awareness and provides education scholarships, financial resources to children and families affected by autism. Autism affects approximately 1 out of every 54 children, and is the co-founder of Houston 20, a growing movement of community leaders that are organized to fight against sex traffic and, in essence, the sex trade in Houston, unfortunately a hotbed, and in Texas, among a litany of other causes. We are fortunate enough to have her and her compassionate, proactive active spirit. Joining us, absolutely a dynamic duo with a dear friend also, Jane Borochoff, another dynamic woman on the move. She is absolutely, among other things, the founder and executive director of H.E.A.R.T, a program. The acronym stands for something that she'll share with us in a moment. We discussed at the Smart Show, but it is under her vision and leadership and the personal commitment. It has been in operation for approximately 15 years, reaching a litany of people and providing hundreds of adults with developmental disabilities with life opportunities for employment and really life-changing programs. Absolutely a litany of things she's done, among others, past chair and president and a board member of Texas Lyceum, a statewide leadership group, among other causes. As with everything, actually, it's just like Amy, she's a graduate of UT and was recently named one of America's most extraordinary entrepreneurial women. Quite frankly, an amazing accomplishment. I think there's a little entrepreneurship attitude and spirit in both of them. Her H.E.A.R.T program has created an environment that fosters self-confidence, that employability, of course, and the ability of the trainees to realize their full potential and capabilities like we all wish to have as adults. No doubt. There is so much to say, and I obviously said a mouthful. I wanted all of us to understand who you are. We've discussed a couple of different programs. Tell us first, let's start first with you, the genesis of your involvement in KNOWAutism. Let's start with that. And then there's a recent synergy and opportunity between KNOWAutism and H.E.A.R.T.
Yes.
And although I said, Jane, the acronym at the front end, Smart Show, when you do start talking, go ahead and remind all of us about H.E.A.R.T. Let's do it with KNOWAutism first.
Well, it was during my chairmanship and involvement with Theater Under the Stars.
Yes.
And we have a program at Theater Under the Stars called The River. And The River works with children of all abilities and really helps them foster the love for the visual arts as well as dancing, singing, and movement. And KNOWAutism has funded that program and helped The River get into schools, H.E.A.R.T, and other schools for their life skills programming and really help them augment and all that they do for our children. I came to know about KNOWAutism. Now, KNOWAutism was funded just 8 years ago by a woman named Tammy Wynn, whose son Reagan was autistic. And through his diagnosis and through all the process of finding therapies and schools and being able to provide everything that their son needed, Tammy and Wayne realized we need a support system. We need to create a network for people who can't afford everything that they're needed for their child to have during this early diagnosis. It's really important for children on the spectrum to be diagnosed within the first 3 to 5 years so that they can get the necessary therapy and medical support and psychiatric support to basically be able to be mainstreamed and really to be able to live to their full potential. And most, unfortunately, Medicaid doesn't cover a lot of the behavior therapy and the speech therapy that's needed. And so KNOWAutism, as you mentioned, Sophia, we provide diagnosis. Texas Children's Hospital provides great services. We also provide scholarships for school and financial aid for therapy. And during this crazy pandemic, we even provided certificates to H.E.B. for food and for other necessities because there are so many people that just had to give up their jobs to be home for their children because their children weren't able to go to school.
No,
so we are here for them.
Well, and I'll say what's amazing about everything that you just said. First of all, what I like is the synergistic opportunities among different nonprofit entities. You've got Tuts and the work you were doing, then you've got River, and then the River, and then you've got KNOWAutism, and that's amazing. And I will say, knowing a little bit about your story, Jane, and having known both of you guys and things that we've done together, guys gender neutral, of course, it's not surprising that it was a mother that had a need for their child, and that's KNOWAutism. And a similar genesis with what tugged at your heart and led to the amazing thing that you've done for your son Tell us about that opportunity.
Sure. Well, I have just in love with my husband. We've been an amazing couple for 21 years. And along with my husband, Bob, comes 3 beautiful children, 2 twins. And then the oldest, my oldest stepson, Bradley, has intellectual challenges. He was born completely typical, but by the time he was 3 years old, he started having seizures and ended up going to Texas Children's Hospital, where he was in and out for about 5 years before they were able to get his seizures under control. Fast forward to the day I met him, he was 14 years old, and now he's 35 years old. And in that time,
that is fabulous.
Bradley, unlike Tammy, who was facing this with a child, I'm facing this with an adult. And I realized, as Bradley's parent, I'm going to have an adult for the rest of my life, because hopefully he will outlive me. And so instead of looking for programs for children, I was really on the hunt for a program for adults with special needs. And that's how the idea of the H.E.A.R.T program came about. And at H.E.A.R.T, we do focus on housing, entrepreneurship, and readiness training, the things that adults...
So that's the H.E.A.R.T. It's the H for the housing.
Yes, and the entrepreneurship. And so this is where, Amy's vision for KNOWAutism, she came to me very early on and said, Jane, I want to see the whole lifespan for people with special needs. And where KNOWAutism is really focusing on the younger children, she really saw an opportunity to give hope to people with younger children to say, well, what's going to happen as my child ages? What programs are going to be out there? And to really create this link between not only H.E.A.R.T and KNOWAutism, but between so many other organizations. And that's really been Amy's vision. And I'm so grateful that we were able to come together for the KNOWAutism Festival.
Right.
And as one of our first, official partnerships to really serve the family.
Well, and that, of course, we welcome your description of it, but it involved art. And
yes.
Art as I am, and in essence, what an opportunity. Walk us through that. Then, Jane, I have to go back, because all I can think of is the Papa Jones and some of the other references that I know that I want to hear about. I clearly know the story too well. Tell us first about the opportunity that came for the inaugural, really combining efforts.
Right. Well, we called it the As I Am Art Festival. Accept me as I am, love me as I am, approve of me as I am, accept me, right? Because so many people say autism awareness is important, but what about autism acceptance and action? Yes. And our action needs to be to teach our children that different is not less. Different is just different specialties, different gifts. And so for the festival, we had more than 250 children, artists participate with their masterpieces. We had a downtown here exhibiting in the art gallery. Mm-hmm. And it was a collaboration with more than 12 different organizations and schools, the Houston Ballet, the River, and other organizations, as Jane mentioned, that work with families all the way through. And we all came together, and it was just a true celebration of, again, the visual arts, but then we also had performances by various art groups. And again, this was just for Houston to come and see the artistry of the community, but also for everybody to see the support and the resources that Houston provides, and that it is here, and we are here for you. There is a community. You are not alone. It was a success. We are definitely doing it again next year, and we hope that we can include even more artists and schools and just continue the magic of it all.
Well, that's incredible that there were 12 organizations, and quite honestly, we'll make sure for the audience that there's the website and other opportunities. Perfect. So that absolutely. So if someone has a question or a need, just an inquiry, they know where to go. Obviously, that was an incredible collaboration. Tell us a little bit about in a traditional situation where non-pandemic, mm-hmm. and tell us the opportunities. Where may we see some of those that participate as part of H.E.A.R.T
trainees?
Yes, so we have so many exciting programs, and I think the ones that have gotten the most attention and the ones you're referring to are those that are focused on employing these adults with special needs out in the real world. And one example of that is a partnership that the H.E.A.R.T program has with Papa John's. Now, I don't know the last time you ordered a pizza, but these days, a lot of people order very complex pizzas, right? They want half gluten-free and the other half, with extra tomatoes and no cheese on this side and extra this. And it gets pretty complicated, right? And so we were trying to think about, Papa John's was very open to having H.E.A.R.T participants, in the stores. But, with driving and these complicated pizza orders, it was getting a little bit difficult. But we keyed in on something, which is the stadiums. So here in Houston, Papa John's is a sponsor of the Houston Texans. And in the stadium, if you go to a Texans game, you can purchase a Papa John's pizza. Well, all of those Papa John's pizzas are the same size. They're all an 8-inch pizza, and they're either cheese or pepperoni, right? There's no special orders if you go to the game. You know, you're not getting gluten-free or extra cheese or whatever it may be. Well, a pepperoni pizza is the same as a cheese pizza, just with pepperoni on top. So it's a pretty simple recipe. And we were able to take our individuals in this environment, and they were able to learn every aspect of that. They can fold the boxes, they can work with the fresh dough, they can do the sauce, the cheese. We have some that are able to place the pepperoni the exact right amount in the exact right place, and every pizza will turn out exactly the same. We have some that can, you know, put it through the oven and cook it, slice it, get it in the box, and put it out for the customer. So the entire process is actually run by individuals with intellectual challenges.
They are earning a salary.
Yes.
The dignity and the independence that comes from this.
Absolutely,
I think
that
is the
we
key.
all want, of course.
Yes.
Absolutely.
When we go into the stadium, we're all wearing the exact same uniform. We're wearing a Papa John's shirt and a Papa John's hat. We go in the same entrance as all the other employees. And why is that significant? Because exactly what Amy said, it's that dignity of work. It's that feeling of being truly included and truly valued, and just walking in with the hundreds of people that work in the stadium before every game, and just being part of that community.
Well, and given that we are right here in, of course, the prophetic city, Houston, at the Hilton of the Americas, Houston first, of course, reminds me of when we put on the Super Bowl.
Yes.
But I need to hear the correlation between the rock star work of H.E.A.R.T and the Super Bowl.
So I was really worried when the Super Bowl was coming to Houston that H.E.A.R.T might not have an opportunity to work in the stadium, even though we're there for every single game. Because I just recognized that every Papa John's employee would probably want to work that event, you know, to be in the stadium for the Super Bowl. And I was blown away when I got a call from Keith Sellens, who is the franchisee of the Papa John's here in Houston and runs those. And he personally called me to say, how many people can H.E.A.R.T provide? And I said, well, you know, as many as needed, thinking he might want 15 or 20. He said, can you do everything in the stadium? And I said, I think we probably could, because we were struggling with, if we do get a booth or two,
Right.
how would we pick who got to go, who
Yes.
doesn't get to
Yes.
go?
Especially given
And-
it's the Super Bowl.
Exactly. So for a typical game, everyone takes turns, and everyone knows if you're not on this game, you'll get on the schedule for the next game. But for the Super Bowl, that's one everyone wants to go to. And I asked him, I said, why do you want H.E.A.R.T? He said, because you have the best employees. They're always on time. Their uniforms always look great. And I know they'll be focused on the pizza and not the game. And that is so true. They were so proud to be there. And what really stuck with me also is that Keith shared with me that it's a marketing experience for their brand, that there's going to be celebrities who will be attending the game who are going to take a picture of the pizza they bought and tweet it out. And in fact, Chrissy Teigen did just that. She purchased a Papa John's pizza at the Houston Super Bowl and tweeted out a picture. If that pizza doesn't look absolutely perfect and appetizing and wonderful, that can damage Papa John's brand. And the fact that they trusted their brand to people with special needs, and that was their
Well,
first
what I
choice.
really do hope is that they branded the fact that they were working with H.E.A.R.T, because to me, that's really the point of differentiation, not necessarily how perfect the pizza looks, but
Right.
that's my perspective.
Yes.
What I would love to hear first from Amy and then from Jane, give me a sense of, in terms of within the no autism world and what you're doing as chair, either an opportunity or a challenge that you're seeing right now that you're tackling today. And Jane, I'd like that from you as well.
I think I know what Jane's going to say, so I'm going to try and say something else. I think that something that's really important, and we are already changing it, and I think the pandemic, because our world got smaller, it's already happening, is with the community that works with individuals with intellectual disabilities, we have to collaborate. Yes, we are individual organizations, but we cannot work in our silos. We have got to collaborate to make progress for the people that we serve. And that is legislatively, what happens up in Austin, as well as, of course, up in Washington, D.C., but also in the community. And again, it is all about acceptance and action. And we have to get people to work together to do that. And there's power in numbers, and it's not money. It is in perception.
And well, there's an acceptance too. There's an acceleration of the action that can take place.
Bless you. Thank
right?
you. Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
sorry, I went with the A's,
Yeah.
but I mean,
No,
it is
it's true.
I mean, in augmenting the acceleration, we could just go nuts with this.
Yes, we
Amy,
can.
I'll stop
It's okay.
because that's an A. Sorry, Jane.
Yes.
What would be in terms of opportunities and perhaps the legislation aspect is what you're contemplating?
So a lot of people are shocked to learn, and I was shocked to find out that it is legal in the United States to pay individuals with disabilities less than the federal minimum wage. And companies and organizations can go to the Department of Labor and they can apply for an exemption, and they can legally pay people with disabilities less than the federal minimum wage, which is less than $7.25 an hour. There have been a number of news stories about this. It's widely done. It's widely practiced. And so when we started the H.E.A.R.T program 15 years ago, it was the idea of, could we disrupt this? Could we come in and do something different and show the world that these individuals are worthy of jobs that pay at least a minimum wage, if not more? And so we've done that through our partnerships with Papa John's, by operating vending machine routes, by partnering with CVS Health, and by other companies who see the value in the work that individuals with disabilities can do. But yet the law is still on the books.
You know, it's really, and I apologize that when you said that to me in preparation for this, it really, it's startling, it's disheartening, and we really do hope that there's an opportunity. And I know that you will have an event coming up in the fall, I surmise, and perhaps with every aspect that we hear about H.E.A.R.T, we need to hear, and maybe what we do is we just get some of our legislative colleagues to come together and start seeing, and quite frankly, as I'm sure you're doing, advocating, there's another A, advocating for those that are doing the right thing. And what is the right thing? Let's be darn clear. Everyone should be paid the same.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking about the assimilation of the differences as we're all coming together, there shouldn't be a point of differentiation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, sorry, I got just a little passionate about this, but it absolutely should. Absolutely. And I have to say, the downside of having this dynamic duo is that we could talk about KNOWAutism an entire 30 minutes.
Yeah.
H.E.A.R.T another 30 minutes. But you know where I'm going, and we've got to pivot. And Amy, we've got to pivot to Houston 20. Although there's going to be a legislative component, so we're going to combine. And then we're going to discuss at the end what drove you guys to have this generosity, this paradigm that I talked about in the beginning of Smart Talk. Houston 2020. It's researched and authored, and basically, we researched and authored also, it makes me think of the healing power of the human connection, okay? That's what the U.S. Surgeon General did, and talked about the problem that's what's transpiring. Pre-pandemic, there was really a loneliness factor, and he was really concerned with the pandemic, all the social recession. What do we also know that's transpired? A litany of complications with, in essence, human trafficking. What's happened in Houston, among other places. You opted to do something about this. Tell us a bit about Houston 20, also because you combined with a litany of other organizations and the Fight On and all of these different things, or Fight Us. Fight for Us, is that what it is? Fight for Us, not Fight On. I'm having a little bit with the acronyms today. But give us a little bit about Houston 2020, the genesis, where you are, and legislation that was accomplished.
I actually came to know about the sex trafficking issue in Houston because of UNICEF. We often think of UNICEF as being an international organization, and it's one of the very best in the world. But because of that, we focused on sex trafficking. I learned that Houston was #1 in the nation.
Well, we did that together.
Sex
we did this
trafficking.
together.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And I realized in driving around and discovering brothels, they were in the west side of town, just a mile from my home. And I thought, there by the grace of God, I have 4 children. They could have been my children that were taken. It's not like the movie Taken today. It's not like those movies. The former drug dealers are now selling a commodity that they can sell over and over and over again. And it is children and women and young boys. And again, shameful, but it is happening in our town. And I realized I was enraged and I had to get engaged. And it's the only thing that I could do to make a difference. So a friend of mine, Jennifer Homan, we founded Houston 20 together. It started out as 20 of us just getting together, 20 mothers, like mad mothers against drunk drivers, to make a difference. And now really we want to get 20% of Houston involved in the organization, again, for awareness, but to put a stop to it. And to find healing solutions for our victims and the survivors of sex trafficking, because they too are a population who has been traumatized, but they need solutions for their journey in life. They want to be employed. They want community. So Houston 20, we have raised over $2 million in the 3 years that we have been around. We have purchased a property in Montgomery County where it is going to be turned into a stabilization center for girls ages 11 to 18. We have spoken to more than 30,000 parents, mentioning to them, it is this. This is where you need to watch your children. Mm-hmm. This is where they are being reached. Who are your children talking to? Do you know who they are Snapchatting to? Watch them. And it's not infringing on their privacy. It is protecting them. It is just protecting them. And talking about sex trafficking is not a dirty and a dark thing. Right. We are simply educating ourselves, arming ourselves with knowledge about it, protecting our children and our community.
No, and what you said, and there's so much, and only because we've got time limitations, I will tell you, I want you to mention what was accomplished in Austin. I'm still stuck in thinking about a mother with no autism, Jane with H.E.A.R.T, and 20 women, and now the force of nature that you guys have become, and what you were able to accomplish in Austin. Walk us through that.
You know, and bless you, I should have said more than anything, Houston 20 is a part of the Fight for Us movement.
Yes.
And again, we have more than 40 nonprofit organizations working together, collaborating. Again, and that is how the momentum, the positive momentum is how we've made change, by collaborating. Yes. And these organizations all worked together. We had survivors come up and testify in Austin and work with the legislators there to pass the SMART Act. It's standardizing the minimum age requirement in Texas to work in a sexually oriented business, which is basically a strip club.
Which, believe it or not, used to be 18.
18, and we now changed it to 21, because if you're 18, you can be a 15-year-old who's made up to look like you're 18. If you are 21, you have to be that age. And all we asked was 3 more years of grace for our children to grow up to make the best decisions for their careers. So, and it passed. Thank you,
Amy.
And thank you, Governor Abbott.
Absolutely, and all the legislators that worked so hard in getting that done. But that is those stories, and there is so much I want to ask. All I can think of is that very powerful PowerPoint that you showed me, that also talked about pictures of what you think someone should look like, but they're not. Mm-hmm. The other aspect, this doesn't just happen to immigrants, or it happens to all of us. That's the other aspect that I talked about early in the Smart Talk segment, which talks about the fact that this affects, whether it's the developmental differences and disabilities but differences, or if it is the autism or whatever it may be, or the horrific situation within the sex trafficking. It happens. It is not a socio and economic issue. No. It is not a race-based issue. It can happen, and we just need to be cognizant of it. I'm so disappointed that there's so much to say in so little time. Let me just allow each of you to just take a moment. If you could say a bit of advocacy, perhaps it's simply, as I talked about early in the show, which is about the beauty of getting involved, and in the fact that when you're making a difference about something, and it can start small. You don't have to be an Amy, you don't have to be a Jane, but just the generosity, and actually the generosity of spirit, and with the positive things it does to one's own anxiety and sense of loneliness. So perhaps you just end, each of you, a little bit of something to be left with as we contemplate the next steps of giving back. Let's see, you want to go, Amy?
Well, sure. I was just about to say, we can all make a difference. Mm-hmm. We each have been given our own gifts and our ways, our spheres of influence, our community, and all of us can find a way to make the world better. That sounds like a Hallmark card, doesn't it? But we just need to extend ourselves a little bit, Don't be afraid to be proactive. Don't be afraid to speak out and say, this is wrong. This is wrong for me, for my family, for others. Don't be a bystander in life. Be proactive. Stand up for what you think is right, and you are going to be helping somebody. Definitely. Just the starfish. Put them back in the ocean one at a time. You're helping that starfish.
Yep.
And
no, that's you nailed it, and only because we've got to hear Jane and wrap up. Unfortunately, that was really perfect, and everyone can make a difference. However, that's defined. There is not one recipe for success or one recipe of how to make a difference. Jane?
So, people who hear my story will often say to me, something about that I'm wonderful for doing this work. But the fact of the matter is I get more out of helping, you know what I mean, than I could ever imagine, right? It's not something that I feel, good on me for doing. It's something that strengthens me and makes me a better person. And working with people with intellectual challenges, I see every day the struggles that they have and how hard that they have to work to use the gifts they've been given. And it just really strikes me that those of us who, for whatever reason, were not born with those challenges, we don't know why, some have them and some don't, shouldn't we do everything in our power to live our life to our fullest abilities? Shouldn't we do everything that we can to make the world a better place, as Amy said? I just can't take that for granted when I see how hard some of our trainees at H.E.A.R.T really do struggle. And we have programs now at H.E.A.R.T where we teach them to give back. And they go to the Houston Food Bank, and they volunteer at the Houston Food Bank, and they prepare food.
Brilliant.
And it's such a win-win to see just the beauty and the love and the wonderful experience that it is to give back for all of us.
Well, I have to tell you,
we're in Houston.
You nailed it. I mean, I'm sorry. You know what?
The most diverse city.
You nailed it.
Why not?
Absolutely, because we're entrepreneurial, utilizing one of the E's from H.E.A.R.T. We're egalitarian. We care deeply, and the reality is, I have to tell you, I've known you, as you know, for a long time. We're friends, we've collaborated, but I was so proud to have this particular dynamic duo. Houston is blessed to have Amy and Jane. We're honored, we're humbled. Thank you for joining us today. You're honoring Latinas to me. I don't know what to tell you.
Muchas gracias.
Saludos. Igualmente, les amo también. Muchísimas gracias. Next time on Latina Voices Smart Talk. Thanks once again to the Hilton of the Americas as we celebrate Houston, Texas. The inclusivity, 145 languages spoken, 1 out of every 4 foreign born, over 90 consular corps. Here's to the prophetic city, Houston, Texas, proud Houston First Board member, as we seek to educate, engage, and inspire. Latina Voices, Smart Talk. Thanks once again for joining us on Latina Voices. We address 3 formidable topics, regardless of race, ethnicity, or social boundaries. Topics and things that can affect all of us. Here's to engaging, educating, and inspiring. Thanks for joining us on Latina Voices Smart Talk. Till next time, stay smart.